a real enjoyable moment right now to have Brendan Bradford from News Corp and one of the leading guys to write about all the combat sports, boxing and MMA. And welcome to a Ringside Seat with Taszyu, mate.
Mate, thanks for having me on. I'm a big fan of your show, obviously, and I can tell you now, I feel very out of my depth with some of the guests you've had on and the interviews you've done. And also, usually it's me doing the interviewing. But mate, thanks so much for having me on. To start off with, you do a great job, and everyone in boxing knows that. And I know everyone sort of follows your stuff, your journey as well. So you've been killing it for the last, definitely the last year or two. But mate, yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm out of my depth.
Nah, it's all good, mate. Yeah, it's great to have you on, mate. Look, I guess I've had a lot of fighters on. I've had a lot of current fighters. I've had a lot of former legends on. I've had managers, promoters, and I thought, why not go with someone in the media for a change, and especially one of the main guys in yourself, and someone that's sort of there regularly covering all the big fights in Australia and MMA. So I thought, why not have you on? And it's been a pretty big last few years, mate. I've really enjoyed. Like we were talking before we went on air about the Saudi trips, and it's pretty much changed a lot of my life, and it's been amazing, mate. So it's so it's good to have someone else on that does a bit of the interviews as well.
I was going to say, you're coming from a job pretty soon. I don't want to give you too many raps, mate.
Well, that's right. Be careful. I know Ben Damon's watching his seat very closely. Nah, God bless. Shout out to Ben. I hope he's well. Mate, so let's get started, mate. So look, first of all, before we get into a lot of the Australian news that's coming up with all the fighters, but what's your background? How did you get into combat sports and being a journalist?
So I've loved my earliest sort of memory of boxing. I was a boxing guy. Like my granddad loved it, and I remember my granddad used to skip for like hours and hours and hours and hit a heavy bag in the garage. But my first memory was watching when we were kings with him. It was the mid-90s or something like that. That was one of my first real boxing memories, and it's the romance. It's Ali, Foreman, those training montages. It was almost always back then, because I was still sort of about 10 or something like that. It was the training and the stories and the behind the scenes stuff, like your Rocky, the montages and Rocky and stuff. And then there were the fights were almost like an afterthought back then. I was too young to sort of know the sport. I wasn't competing in the sport, so it was all that romance, the history, and the stories. That's what really got me hooked on boxing. Back then, I grew up in New Zealand, so it was David Tua.
Yeah.
Is and still is just
phenomenal,
the man.
Legend. Yeah.
I always say, people sort of my age in Australia, it was probably Tszyu.
Yeah.
Guys a bit older than me, Jeff Fennick. But for us in New Zealand, it was Dave Tua. Followed his career. Moved to Australia about, what are we now? I made about 17, 18 years ago. And I actually started out freelancing in rugby union, bit of rugby league. And although that was my first couple of years in media, I'd always try and do some boxing stuff. So I think maybe the first fight I actually covered as a media guy was Mundine Shane Mosley.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Sugar Shane. Yep.
Yeah, actually, the first one was the first thing I sort of covered as a media person was when Mosley left. 6 weeks before.
That was the big thing. I was in Sydney. I had Luke Jackson fighting on the undercard of the original Mosley Mundine, and I'd met Shane a few times in the past with Billy Dibb, so I knew Shane, and that was a big thing, because he left, and Vlad Wharton was the promoter who used to promote Costa, and there was a big drama about it because they reckon he got and Jeff Fennick was involved, said he put in money to keep the fight going. There was a big drama, and he left, but they got him back though. Quite a few months later.
Yeah, I forget the timing, but it was maybe 2 weeks, maybe that's like 2 months, maybe 6 weeks later.
It was a bit of a circus, that wasn't it?
I remember, like, I'd been to fights as a fan before that, the years leading up. We'll probably get to one of those ones as well, but I remember getting there, getting my media pass, walking in, and first fight's supposed to start at, I don't know, say 5 o'clock, and it's already 5:45, and no one is fighting. And I remember back then it was Andy Raymond was hosting or commentating, and I sort of leaned over to where he was, and I said, "Mate, what's the hold up?" And he turns around and he goes, "There's no gloves. No one has any gloves." The guy that was supposed to deliver them was stuck in traffic or something. So that was an introduction to boxing, and um, well, not to put any noses out of joint, but that is that's a very common thing in boxing as well. Like the guy hasn't got the gloves. You'll come across it to this day. But it's one of those things about this great sport that the characters, the stories, the untold stories as well that I think people just love.
Yeah, as a promoter, mate, I just had my 20-second show recently, and something always happens, mate. Something, they'll forget the gloves or something. They'll, one of the belts will be left behind, or the timekeeper or something. There'll be, or the doctor, might have to take longer backstage stitching someone up or something. There's always something that will hold up the show, and that's just part of it. You got to take everything into allowance, and more so when the fighters. I always tell everyone, the fight's not on until you're in the ring touching gloves, because
Yeah,
even if you weigh in, sometimes the fight doesn't go ahead. Even I've seen guys gloved up about to walk to the ring and the fight's been called off. Like,
yeah,
until you're in there getting referee's instructions and he says, come out at the bell, the fight is not on until that moment.
yeah. I remember just recently, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, Monroe Matet was fighting. I want to say he was fighting Jolene Taylor, if I got that right, at the Star Casino. They were in the ring looking at each other. And yeah, it must have been Jolene Taylor because Tony Del Vecchio looks at
Yep.
Monroe and says, he's got the wrong gloves on.
Mm.
So there was a 10, 15-minute wait because I think they'd given Monroe's gloves to one of the Maloney brothers who was on the same card.
Yeah.
So everyone was just vamping. It's live on TV, it's on Fox Sports,
Wow.
and changing gloves. But
Yeah.
I don't always envy the promoters at moments like that.
A tough job, mate. It's a tough job. So, going back before we get on to the other stuff, like David Tour, mate, he was one of my favourites as well. Luckily enough, I got to meet him when Robbie Peter won the world title in Melbourne. I think it was 2005, 2006, or maybe, yeah. Got to meet him. He was a pure gentleman. He was probably the best heavyweight never to win a world title. He knocked
Yeah,
out, I think, about 4 or 5 future world champions, John Ruiz and a few
20
others. And
seconds, John
yeah,
Royce. Yeah,
and I mean, so many. He's just a freak, and he actually got Lennox Lewis was on his game the time he fought him, and Lennox played a pretty safe game as well. He kept him at a
yeah.
distance and boxed him. But besides Lewis at that time, I mean, David Toole was an absolute machine, and what a great human, what a friendly guy, and
Yeah.
yeah, just what a legend.
I finally met him. So he worked Mark Hunt's corner when Hunto fought Sonny Bill a couple of years back.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So finally met. I was so nervous. Like I was full. Like I turned
yeah.
into like that 12-year-old boy again. But I actually met Lennox Lewis in Vegas. Um, I was over there for Canelo Danny Jacobs.
Oh
Bilal
yeah.
Akaway was got that late notice world title fight against John Ryder on the undercard.
Yes, yeah, but that's right, Bilal. Yeah, yeah, that's right.
So I went over to cover Bilal's fight, but also Canelo, and I think Jeff was there for had an awards not like maybe a WBC awards
Do you know?
ceremony.
Do you know what? You know what's funny about this? And I'm gonna name the year this happened.
Yeah,
This in 2018, wasn't it?
2019 it was.
2019.
Yeah,
29. Yeah,
Cinco
it
de
was. It
Mayo
was
weekend. Yeah,
2019. You know why? Because I was in town as well. I was driving. I went to Freddie Roach's. I was driving in the Uber, and I seen Jeff and Susie just on the side of the street in LA.
yeah.
I yelled out, Jeff. He goes, call me. And I called him. And he said, come meet us tonight. And he was there with Susie, I think Brock and that. And they're going to that awards night. Then I went down, and because I spoke to Mick Hackaway, and I went down and watched Bilal and Canelo on that train in San Diego before the
Oh,
fight. So I was
sick.
But I didn't go to the fight though.
You weren't
But
at the fight, yeah.
I was around. So that was around the same time. Yeah.
Well, we must have just missed each other. I don't
Yeah.
know if I
True.
knew you. I might have known you back then. I'm not sure. I
Yeah.
can't remember.
Wow. Yeah.
But
I remember that time. He got the last minute
yeah,
call up to fight
yeah,
Ryder, and they went with it. And yeah, that's right.
that's right. So yeah, Jeff was out for dinner, and he said, "I'll come down. We're at this pizza place or whatever." I can't even remember what hotel it was, but I went down. There's a big table, 10
Yep.
people, and it's pizzas and wine and everything. And Lennox Lewis walks past,
Yeah.
and I sort of spotted him like, "Fuck!" Now it's Lennox Lewis, and Jeff. Like I'm real close with Jeff, and I sort of like I know him, and I know he's a superstar back in the
He
80s, and
knows
people
everyone.
still,
He knows Jeff knows
and he
everyone.
knows everyone.
Everyone, mate. They
But
all respect him. They love him. Yeah.
I don't know whether it's like I've been out for Jeff for dinner with Jeff in Sydney, and it's people recognise him and people talk to him. But we were at this place, and he was a bigger star in Vegas than he is here. I don't know whether it's maybe people around Sydney just used to seeing Jeff Fennick. I don't know, but he sort of yelled out, "Oh, Lennox Lewis!" Lennox Lewis comes over and has a chat, and I think he might have sat down for a couple of minutes. And by that stage, I was probably 2 bottles of red wine down at first night in Vegas, and everyone sort of dispersed, and it was just Jeff, Susie, Lennox Lewis, and his wife, and they were like, "Oh, we'll go for a walk." And me, sort of being young, you were mentioning before, like once you lock onto something, you're not letting it go. And I was like, when am I ever going to be in Vegas with the Phoenix and the Lewises? So I just followed them around
Yeah.
for about 20 minutes, and I told Lennox Lewis the day he broke my heart when he beat David Tua, and
Yeah.
he had a little chuckle about it. But yeah, just yeah. Sorry, I was off on a tangent there, but Dave Tua, superstar hero growing up.
Yeah. Lennox is a gentleman, mate. I met him a few times now, but the first time I met him in Saudi, and speaking about Jeff Fennick, so I met Lennox Lewis, Evander Holyfield, and Roberto Duran all for the first time on the same night at the weigh-in for the weigh-in of press conference for Fury Usyk 1 in Saudi, May last year. All three of them, when they found out I was from Australia, how's Jeff? How's his health?
Awesome.
All three of them, Holyfield, then Lewis, and then Roberto straight away. How's Jeff? And I've done a couple of videos and I sent them back to Jeff. But straight away, yeah, because I trained under Jeff when I was in Sydney for many years, and know him well, speak all the time. But he's very respected, and in America, Mauricio Suleiman, always Jeff, you know what I mean, and everyone, Vinny Pazienza, whoever you meet over there. I was with two of his old opponents, Carlos Arate and Daryl Zaragoza. I've done a couple of little videos back to Jeff. So, look, he's respected over there. And Australia does appreciate him, but I think worldwide it's nothing like what he gets in America. Just lost you there. I lost you there for a bit.
Gotcha. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, I lost you there for a little bit.
So a plane just flew over. It might have been that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
All good, mate. All good. So, mate, let's talk about current Aussie boxing. We've got the Tim Tszyu fight this weekend. I'm going up for it. I'll be there on Friday for the press conference. And Tim's a dear friend of mine, as you probably know, of history with his dad, and so this is a massive fight for him. It's obviously a must win. Tell me a bit about the lead up to this, mate, and how's the feel in Sydney for this weekend?
Yeah, it's I was actually moving down to see Tim preparing today. Watched him train a little bit and got a couple of interviews. Me and Joe McAllister.
Yep.
Most people watching will know, Cody Kay, Sporting News, Trent and Tommy were down there as well. So it's one of those ones where we were sort of standing there, sort of against the wall, just watching. I think Tim was hitting a heavy bag, and it was like, in 20 years' time, you'll be able to say, oh, it was fight week, and we were down at the gym watching him prepare. Like people talk about watching Costa spar and Jeff Fennick spar and stuff, and the good old days, and we were sort of this is a bit of a moment. So, but yeah, in terms of, I think one of the big sort of talking points in the lead up to this fight is how is Tim, I guess, mentally after back-to-back losses last year and the stoppage against Buckram? He seems in a really good spot. Like he's, I think, sort of getting back to Sydney, getting back to Rockdale has been pretty good. Although Vegas is cool, but the Orlando fight week was just a bit weird, just a bit off. Like
Yeah, I heard that.
it was kind of like we were at this resort and felt like in the middle of nowhere kind of thing. Well, I don't know Orlando, but it was out. There wasn't the hustle and bustle of like a Vegas or Sydney or Newcastle when you're up there for fight week. So it feels like a bit of maybe a reset. Get back to the roots, reconnect. He's Tim said a couple of times wants to reconnect with the Aussie fan base after sort of spending about 6 or 7 months in the US last year. So
Yeah.
And again, I've been trying to watch as much Joey Spencer footage and highlights and fights as I can, and mate, he's not a slouch, eh? Like he's looks like a good fighter. So yeah, it should be a good one.
Mate, look, he's definitely got the credentials. His only loss was to Ramos, who's one of the top guys at 154.
Yeah.
I thought he was unlucky. I thought he beat Lubin, but didn't get the decision. But I mean, mate, look, it's a good test. I mean, look, I believe in Tim, more than anyone, or as much as anyone. I believe he'll be successful on the weekend, and I know that. Look, do you know the Australian public, mate? They're the worst. They're the worst at it for kicking. When they're down, they're with you. They're with you through the good times, and so many times they're not there for the bad times. So the amount of stuff I've seen online since that last loss makes me absolutely sick to my stomach. But I'm sure there'll be a lot of them eating their words once they see Tim back on the weekend. And then whether the Thurman fight happens, I think that's another good fight. I did say, me personally, as a friend and think of putting my manager's cap on, I would like to see him in 2 fights before he goes back to the top echelon of the 154 division, because it's a massive stack division now of Ortiz and all the guys there. So I believe Tim will be back in his rightful spot. This will be a good test, and then whoever else is in June, whether it's Thurman or someone else they get over, and then I reckon he's ready to go back to to what's his mate is. I'd love to see him get Fundora, but if Fundora's still got belts by then, I don't think he's one of the strongest guys in that division. Definitely. But yeah, look, I believe Tim will be successful this weekend and get back to where he belongs.
Yeah, you mentioned Fundora. I was quite pleased to see him get that good win about sort of a week and a half ago or so. It felt like everyone had an asterisk next to Fundora's name. He's a unified champion, and like rightly so. I thought if without the cut against Fundora, I think Tim probably would have knocked him out in another 2 rounds.
Yeah, I had Tim knocking him out in 6 rounds if it wasn't.
Yeah.
He looked on point. The first 2 rounds, I was worried when I heard about the change in opponents. I didn't like it. You're training for a guy who's like, say, 5'10" or whatever, right hand, and next minute you get a 6'5" southpaw. When you stop your sparring, you stop your camp pretty much. It was all ready to, and they had to rush into sparring partners at the last second, and but it didn't bother him. He was on point with that right hand, and I believe he would have knocked out Fundora within 6 rounds for sure.
Yeah, the way the first, what are we talking, like 1 round and 55 seconds went, it was one-way traffic, wasn't it? And it was just that freak elbow on top of the head that sort of changed the course of, or almost the course of history, like all boxing history, or Tim Tszyu's history.
He wouldn't have fought Buckram if he would have beat Spence. That fight wouldn't have happened because he would have had 2 belts. Spence jumped in the ring that night with Thing, and even though that hasn't eventuated, it might have eventuated with Tim. Everyone was, even Crawford's name was in the mix at that time, or Madrimov or Ortiz. So he wouldn't have even fought Buckram if he would have beat Thinger. So it did change the course of history.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought it was good, not only for Fundora, who spoke to a few times that week, and really lovely fella, like a really nice guy.
I mean,
good dude,
he's a nice guy.
and a nice family as well. His sister, obviously, a superstar, and like the whole family there. And So it was good for, I was happy for Fundora, and also I think it sort of puts that loss into perspective now that Fundora's come back, defended those belts. He's not just a push in or a late notice guy. Like he's a legitimate world champ
Yeah,
now. He was before, but I
yeah,
think I think there was a lot more credit that we can give to him now after that one.
yeah. They talk about he might be fighting the Puerto Rican kid, Xander Reyes.
Sender Sayas,
Yeah,
yeah,
Zayas, yeah,
he's a
yeah.
good
So
fighter too. Yeah,
yeah, I've been watching him for quite a few years. I met him. He trains under the guy that used to trains Kambosis, the guy from down in
um,
Miami.
yeah, Javier, yeah,
Javier, yeah. So I met them in Vegas. I think it was the fight week. I think it was Canelo versus Triple G3, and he seems like a nice kid. I've been watching his progress. That'll be a good fight.
yeah,
And yeah, so I mean it is a good division. Majamov, I'm surprised Ortiz handled Majamov as easy as he did. Not
yeah.
saying easy, but I mean that was a 50 fight, but he stepped up Ortiz, and that was a good fight. I was there live for that one on the
Oh man,
Bivol Better BF undercard number 2. Yeah.
better ask you what's the, not to try and turn this around on you. What's the best card or fight or main event fight or whatever that you've travelled over for? I know you've been to bloody
Yeah.
everything,
Yeah,
but I have wondered.
been to a few, man. Look, I don't know, like going back, my first actually time was in '08. My first time in the States was watching Sugar Shane Mosey versus Ricardo Morga 1. And I think Mosey knocked him out in the last 30 seconds or something. That was interesting. And back then, Andre Berto fought Stevie Forbes, and I met Vernon Forrest before he got passed away, and Don King. But then, I mean, Triple G3, that fight week was huge. It was my first Canelo Triple G, experience. But the fight wasn't obviously like the first two. But that
Yeah.
was fight week. I mean, I met Julio C. Chavez, Roberto Duran on the same day. That was just off its head, you know what I mean?
That's
And
awesome.
I mean,
That's awesome.
and that was their next level. But, fight wise, it's either Fury Usyk 1 isn't actually the main event, or Better Bivol 1. I'll probably
Yeah.
say Fury Usyk 1, because that was, we didn't know who was going to win it. Like Fury won a lot of those middle rounds. Usyk got the knockdown, which made it close. So was on the edge of our seat. I was sitting right next to
Yeah.
Antonio Tava and Kell Brook when they announced the decision. Yeah, so probably that one. Better Bivol 1 was a great fight, but I definitely do think nothing was closer than Fury Usyk 1. So I think that's probably got to be it. I
Yeah.
think. Yeah,
Yeah. In
definitely.
terms of like the momentum shifts in that
Oh,
first fight, like
yeah,
right, like I was like, oh,
yeah,
Fury's got this, and then Usyk came
yeah.
back, and it's like,
Fury
oh, he's
was
gonna knock
coasting.
him out.
Fury looked
Yeah.
like he was having fun. He was coasting. I thought he hurt Usyk to the body and with an uppercut, but then Usyk come back, and so I'll probably say that was the biggest. Yeah, that was crazy. So, but there's been a lot, and obviously can't wait for many more down the track. Yeah, so
As a man that can make things happen, can you get Usyk to fight my man Joseph Parker?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll uh, I'll try and make that happen, mate. I'll talk to Spencer,
Just to
and
add to
there
just
you
to
go,
add to
Spencer.
all the things you're working on.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I do speak to Spencer Brown regularly. He looks after Joseph Parker now, and I obviously talk to Joseph Parker's trainer too, a fair bit now. He's an absolute legend and former world champion. So they're all good guys, mate. I reckon he probably will get the shot. I reckon it was. I felt bad for him when the Dubois
Yeah,
didn't happen. That was like the last minute. First of all, I interviewed Kid Austin probably a couple of hours before he pulled out against Shakur. I interviewed him, no drama. Next minute I'm hearing he's out of the fight. And then the next day I hear Dubois out, and I'm like, what's going on here? And it was just crazy.
oh man, they've never really said, what, especially with Dubois, like what does he just get sick, or they never really said. I think someone in Parker's camp did an interview recently, or just last couple of days, saying we still really haven't got word what actually happened, and I reckon he would have beaten Dubois that day too.
I tip Joe. I think Joe had a great camp, and sometimes you get a bit carried away with your power, and Dubois is known as that big puncher, but like he got up against Zhang twice, Park, and I believe an all-round boxer like Joe that does everything nice. You wouldn't say he does anything like amazing, but he's got good power. He's got a good chin. He boxes well. He does everything, like pretty much ticks all the boxes without being exceptional at one thing. So I think him on his day, just boxing the right plan, and Duval probably thinking I can come out and knock him out like I did Joshua. I really did give Joshua a big chance of winning that fight. Yeah. So look, Duval must have been ill though, because the Duval was riding high off the AJ win. So they're definitely and I know Frank Warren and that were that devastated by losing that fight. So I think, no doubt he must have been very, very ill.
Yeah, and as a unabashed Joseph Parker fan, it's been awesome to see this. It's like a second coming of Joseph Parker after a couple of those losses, and he was just a couple of bad off years, and you look at his resume in the last sort of 2 years, and Jang, Wilder, and now Vicoli, and I think Dubois would have been on that list too. It's awesome to see, and hopefully he gets back there, or he's back there now, but hopefully he gets a good title shot as well.
And that brings me back to my point with Tim Tszyu. I tell everyone, a loss or two losses don't defy you. Now, anyone that knows boxing, back in the day, Roberto Duran, Willie Pep, Hitman Tommy Hearns, Hagler,
Sugar Ray.
Everyone's had losses on their record, right? Some it doesn't. So it's only in the modern Mayweather era where everyone thinks you got to be, have an O on your record now. For anyone that's watching us talk right now, that that sort of, I'd say, call a casual fan, which is fine because we need casual fans as much as we need the diehard fans. But a loss doesn't defy you. Now, Tim's coming off 2 losses, which really, I only really say 1 loss, really, because the Frendora fight to me was just But anyway, it's coming off 2 losses. Now, Parker come off 2 bad losses, right? He looked like his career was over. But they went back to the basics and they brought him back again. And that's what they're going to do with Tim Tszyu. Same thing. Yeah. So it just shows that it's not over. Mate, his dad, Costa, had a very bad loss. And I was in training camp with Costa for Vince Phillips.
Right.
I was part of the team. Yeah. So I know that fight and how shocked we all were. But Vince Phillips, but he come back and become undisputed. Now, it just shows that it's not over till it's over. Just because of 1 or 2 losses, back in the day, the greats had losses, all of them. You know what I mean? So that's the thing. So, if you go back to the basics and you go back and rebuild yourself a bit, anything's possible. So what happened with Joseph Parker, I believe that'll happen with Tim.
And not just, a loss doesn't end you. You go back and talk about some of the greats that have had a loss and gone on to even bigger things than they did before. Like Costa went on to become undisputed. Muhammad Ali loses to Joe Frazier, goes on, beats George Foreman. Sugar Ray Leonard loses to Duran, comes back, beats him, has a great career. It happens. It's part of the sport. And that's where, I don't know if you're going to get too much into UFC or MMA, but they in the UFC, it's one of the reasons I think that it's caught up so much or just, come on so strong is that you get the best fighting the best. They just make it happen. And guys will take losses, but they'll keep fighting. They'll keep coming back. And even more so over there, guys take a loss, come back, win the title. They are, inevitably, a lot of them get better for the loss. I've interviewed so many guys who had a 0 on the record, and it's like you just fixated on the 0, and then you take a loss, and you're like, oh fuck, it's not that bad, and I learned this, and I was doing this wrong, we weren't fixing this, and
100%.
And you get back and you come back better.
So let's talk about some other Aussies. So obviously we just had George Kambosis, obviously had a good win against Jake Wyllie. Was you at that fight at all? Or?
Yeah, I was at that fight. It was actually the Imam Kataev was in a great fight earlier that night as well. Yeah,
Aman's a
people
beast.
sort of,
I actually
yeah, yeah.
sponsor Aman actually.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
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 I sponsored him his fight in Chechnya, which was the one before this one. Yeah, so
yeah.
went over there. But yeah, he's the next big thing, mate, at the light heavyweight division for sure. And but yeah, so how was that? I mean, it was a last minute replacement which shocked everyone, and obviously now George goes on to world title. Tell me the feel being there.
Yeah, it was actually, to be honest, the atmosphere was pretty good. Like it was a lot of talk of ticket sales and stuff in the lead up, but I guess the way it was configured and the way you put the stands and stuff, the atmosphere was pretty cool. Like it wasn't a huge crowd. I don't know what it was, probably maybe 4,000, 4,000, which like in Sydney on a Saturday night, that's not a bad crowd. Like
Yeah,
I think the Horden is probably roughly the same, and Brock Jarvis and Keith Thurman fought about a week and a half before that and would have had probably roughly the same crowds.
yep.
Um, so yeah. So it was actually a good atmosphere, and geez, Jake Wyllie came out and bought the fight. Like it was an
Yeah,
entertaining fight, and Imam was in a really good fight as well,
yeah.
and you got to see some Tera Moana on the card, like a rising star, and two women's world title fights too. So
Yeah,
yeah, it was a good night.
well, George. I mean, the first 5, 6 rounds looked on point. Like he
Yeah.
pretty springy step and looking like the George that sort of upset Tio. So hopefully he can go on, mate, and go over there and do the same with Hitchins. Hopefully.
Yeah, that's the plan. I know Hitchins is. I think he's signed for the fight. Like that's what they want to do. And Eddie Hearn was saying, yeah, this is it. I think it's June 21, the date.
Yeah,
Um,
I think he
in New
was
York.
fixed on the date. I remember him saying to someone the date was a date. There was no change in the date. That's the
Yeah,
date. So yeah.
yeah, yeah. So and yeah, so that looks like it's next. And there was a head clash. So George had a cut on his forehead, but from all accounts, that seems to be sort of healed, good to go. And I think they were talking about the time frame in terms of, I think Eddie said have a month off, and then you've got maybe a 12-week or 10-week training camp.
Plenty
Um,
of time. Plenty of time.
Plenty of time. Yeah,
He keeps himself in shape all the time too. So George isn't the guy that blows himself out or wait. He always is in shape. You know what I mean? So I think he's a bit of a gym junkie, mate. I think he's always in the gym. So I don't think that's a problem at all.
yeah. I think I saw he was back in the gym the next day,
Yeah,
or the Monday after the Saturday fight.
he's he's a lot
He's,
a lot a lot a lot like a guy I trained for a lot of his career, Luke Jackson. Always in the gym, mate. Cannot not be in the gym. So that's just exactly the
yeah,
same. Yeah.
that's Jacko to a T.
Trust me, I've been with pretty much most of his career, mate. I'd have to tell him to sort of ease off sometimes because he just wouldn't stop. You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
um,
actually remember. I think I did a story on it back in the day, a few years ago. Um, when Zarafa beat Jeff Horn down the first fight in
yep,
Bendigo.
yep.
Um,
I was there. I had Bo Belbin on the undercard.
oh, nice. Yeah, yeah.
I got a
So,
win that night. Yep.
so yeah, Mick was saying that his team goes back and they're celebrating, and undoubtedly a few beers had by a few people, and pretty sure he said he was up at 5 a.m. doing his road work the,
The
the,
raffle
the next
was.
day.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
yeah,
was. Yeah. I did
yeah.
hear that.
So
Yeah.
it's
It was
yeah,
funny. It was funny the day of the fight or the day before the fight, he got jumped. Him and his mate got jumped by a couple of junkies
no way.
in Bendigo, walking around
Out in
Bendigo.
Bendigo.
Yeah, true
Shit.
story. Yeah,
Oh, I didn't know that.
lucky his mate forwarded him off because Michael obviously didn't want to hurt himself before the fight. Yeah, they got
Bloody hell.
attacked. They got jumped by a couple of bums in Bendigo. Yeah, that's a true
All
story.
right.
The week either the day of or the day before the Horn fight, number one.
Bloody hell. Those were two great fights too, man. Like they
Yeah,
were. I was at the second one in Brisbane.
yeah, Ripper.
Awesome
Yeah,
couple of
they're both
fights, and
great fights. And there's a bit of talk now about Zarafa possibly world title shot. I'm not sure if you know more than I do with that one, or because
I
Janibek's got 2 belts, and then the other bloke that beat Hamza, he's got the other belt.
yeah,
and then you got Lara. So it wouldn't be Lara. It can't be Janabek. Is it the guy that beat, or are they talking about legit title or interim, or what are they talking about?
I'm not sure. I messaged Mick the other day, just sort of, he sort of said something like big news. I was like, mate, let me know. Yeah, let me know. Right story. He said, when I know, we'll touch base. And I was trying to think, is it,
because Janabek's
the Dama's got the other belt?
Adama's, well, he's the one that, well, I thought Hamza would have been, was going to beat him, but it was a draw. And it's got to be him if it's a legit belt.
Yeah.
It won't be Lara. Janabek's already fighting soon. I know Janabek.
Yeah.
We interviewed him over there, Ripper bloke. It's got to be Adama, or at least it's a interim or one of those or something else. But we'll have to
I'm trying to think, maybe have they got something, in the works for Janabek's next fight?
Maybe.
I don't know. I'm just trying to think how it could work, because he was obviously he was in Sydney last year for the Mikhailovich fight, and man, he was he was too cool, man. Like, we're all trying to like hype it up, and there was all the stuff. I think he flew in the day before the weigh-in.
Crazy.
So, and it's like, oh, how's this guy going to do it? Blah blah blah. And is he going to make weight and all this stuff? And man, he was just so cool. He was just like, yeah, it's not our first rodeo. Like, we traveled, and I was like, oh, all right.
Amateur world champion, mate. Guys like that, and same as Kostya and Triple G and all them, Eastern European countries, mate. They have 2 or 3 amateur fights. Lomachenko, Usyk. They've fought in every country in the world. They've fought on lack of sleep. They've fought in every obstacle you can think of. They just fight and get it done. So with them guys, that's a good thing about having such a big amateur career, because you see everything. You're on the road and you see everything. There'll be days when you feel like shit, or days when you feel great, or days when you can't make weight, but you got to get through. Like, there'll be days, but there's no excuse. They just get it done. So them guys are so mentally strong. That's why the Aussies, we're really up against it, competing with them guys when you're talking about Olympic Games and that, because they're just freaks. Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Ukraine, Russia, they're all just freaks.
I was actually talking to Marcos Amado, the Australian Olympic boxing coach. Just maybe 4 or 5 days ago. Actually doing a story that'll be out in the next couple of days. Shameless plug. Sort of 10 sort of fighters likely to make the LA Games. Now boxing is confirmed for the Olympics, but we're just talking about the obstacles and challenges of being an Australian amateur boxer, because we're far away. Like, you're not going to get the Kazakhs down to fight in Canberra, the AIS, so you've got to go over there, and that costs a lot of money, and which is why Harry Garside winning in Tokyo, and then Caitlin and
Charlie Senior
in Paris. Like, it's so important to keep building, because you get more funding, you get more so hopefully it keeps growing and growing. It was I think it was the biggest team they ever sent to Paris last year, and there's a long list of potential fighters for LA too. So and like you say, like that's the basis for all of it. That's why Janabek's so good, and Usyk and Loma and all these guys.
I'm happy that it's back, because I was scared when they'll talk about it not being in the Olympics, because that would have been the biggest injustice ever. Amateur boxing needs to be in the Olympics. Every young kid from all walks of life dream about going to the Olympic Games. I did myself. I dreamed to go to 2000. I only just missed out, but I represented Australia on a few occasions. So I made the Australian team, but the Olympics was the number one. Obviously, not everyone makes it, but at the end of the day, the fact you got that dream that can take a kid off the street, and that's what it is in most countries, especially everywhere. So thank God, and I think we've got Triple G to thank. I think he's one of the guys that, because he's got a big role now in the Olympic boxing. So thank God that they got it back, because that would have been the biggest misjustice ever. The fact that you got some of these new sports that are in like that weird break dance, all this weird stuff, and skateboarding and all this other stuff, dirt bikes, and I don't know. BMXing, but then they're taking out one of the most
True.
original,
Yeah.
legit sports is boxing.
Yeah, 100%. They got this and fair play, like you like what you like. If you like breakdancing, whatever, you go for it. But yeah, like boxing, what else? Like wrestling,
Yeah, but
straight up running.
not watching that Aussie girl. I'm not
Oh,
watching her
yeah.
any time, any place, anywhere.
I remember watching that. I don't. It must have been live because I was watching. I was watching. The Olympics comes on. It's just like I'm sleepless for 2 weeks, man.
Yeah,
I love watching
yeah, of
almost
course.
every sport.
Yeah.
So Olympics are like I'm lying in bed and I'm watching this, and she starts, and I'd never seen breakdancing at all. She was the first thing, and I literally woke up my wife, and I go, is this can't be real, and I just didn't think about it, and then I woke up in the morning and saw just the internet exploding, and yeah, no, it wasn't what breakdance was supposed to be, but I literally went to for a couple of hours. I was like, man, breakdancing's a weird sport.
He became a meme, I think. Yeah.
Oh, dude,
But
straight away.
yeah. Look,
But yeah,
just on the amateurs for a bit, because it's something I do know about the fact that my amateur history, and I was at the AS myself back in the day, around some great fighters. Back then, my days, we had like, Daniel Gill, Michael Cassidy, Danny Green, Paul Miller, some from that era, James
yeah,
Swan.
man.
But I mean, the original time we got funding was when Robbie Peden, who doesn't get talked about enough, and if you don't know who that name is, guys, please do your homework. Robbie Bomber Peden, one of the greatest Australian boxers of all time. He was the first Australian to ever do a deal with any American promoter. He done a deal with Lou Duva and Showtime, and he fought over there against Barrera, Morel, against Marquez, done it all. But as an
Yeah,
amateur, he was even better than he was as a pro. He was a freak, 2 Olympic Games, and when he won a gold medal in the 1994 Commonwealth Games in Victoria, Canada, against Spencer Oliver, that was when we got funding. So that sort of helped a lot of us, time. Since then, I don't think it is what it is, but like he said, so countries that live so close to each other, and this is when there's no wars going on in the world. You got Russia, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Romania, Uzbekistan, Armenia. All them countries you can drive there. So they're all competing
yeah,
against each other. Mongolia, China, they're all competing against each other all the time, yeah? Okay. Australia, here we are fighting each other. We might fight New Zealand and Samoa. No disrespect to you
yeah,
guys, but I mean, every now and then there's a good Kiwi and Samoan, but Australia is usually the strongest at the Oceania Games. We usually go away and win 9 or 10 out of the gold medals, or 11 or 12 out of the gold medals. So that's where we are. So how can you improve fighting at that level? We're going away for a world championship. Sometimes we do a few training camps, we do some comp sparring with other countries. That's okay. I've always said that we need to get a junior squad at like 14 to 16 to 17. They've got to be funded to go over for 6 months at a time, and that's hard
yeah,
because they're probably going to miss out on schoolwork. But we need them, and we've got to send them to Kazakhstan for 6 months. We've got to send them to Pakistan for 6 months. They have to train alongside them guys every day and compete with them every day.
yeah,
Unless that happens, which is a long shot, because what kid can go away for most of the year and not miss school and miss everything else? But you've got to get them as juniors. We've got to get our juniors. It's too late with the seniors. The seniors already got their styles, and I
mm,
think we've got to get them in with them guys at the age of 14, 15, at the youngest. I'd say younger if you could, but I'm just trying
yeah,
to be, and I think we've got to send them over there. They've got to be fully funded, and they've got to be over there for 6 months of the year between Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan at the moment, because Russia, Ukraine, that's not a fact at the moment. But Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, we've got to be there with them guys, competing, training, doing what they do. And if we don't, we won't ever end up. I've always said I'll never bag Australia because but we'll never win a gold medal at the Olympics. Maybe in the
yeah,
women's competition, but not in the men.
yeah. And it's like you not only will you fight and train with those guys, but you get their mindset as well. So I had a good mate of mine at high school who was a good judo fighter, or judo player, I think they call them. he ended up going to the Com Games in Glasgow, 2014, I think.
Yeah,
Vitsa.
yeah, yeah.
He's actually
Is that when Andrew Maloney won gold for Australia?
same one. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, same
yep.
one. And
Shout out to Andrew and Jason Maloney, two of the
two of the
real
best blokes.
quality fighters in recent years for Australia, and both
Yeah,
world
yeah,
champions and both Ripper blokes. Shout out to them guys.
yeah. Hundreds. Two of the best fighters pound for pound, and two of the best blokes pound for pound as well. Going
Made a
around
lot of
in the
experience in them
sport.
two boys. Great, really nice
Yeah,
guys.
and I think so. Glasgow was also, you know, Lomelito Moala.
Oh, yeah,
Loma.
yeah, yeah.
I think he won
He fought Lomachenko as an amateur, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He did.
Yeah.
He also fought, who was it? Josh Taylor might have been at that games as well. I think he might
Okay.
have fought Josh
Yeah.
Taylor in those games. But so yeah, my mate Veets was, you know, we'd be at school and all of a sudden he's not there for a couple of days. Oh, where's Veets? He's you know, he's in Kazakhstan training, and he'd
Yeah.
go over there for a month or however long at a time and come
Yeah.
back and tell us all these stories of just the not so much the training or the things that they did, but the mindset
Yeah.
of, you know, everything hurts, that kind of shit. Like there's no excuse, like there's nothing. And like you do see that these days, but I think you can name fighters, boxers now, and it's from Australia who have that mindset, but it still seems to be a little bit of an outlier whereas it's you go over there and there's gyms, there's hundreds of, you know, school kids or whatever. That's the mindset, that's the approach. So no wonder that they're going to be better overall.
Well, the thing is, I mean, you look at, you know, guys in the UFC like Khabib and that from Dagestan, Israel, the other guy, who's the other good guy from Dagestan,
Islam Makhachev
yeah, Islam, and
is
then you've got
lightweight champ.
all them guys,
Um,
and yeah, and who's the other, Hamza, or
Hamzat
yeah,
Chimaev,
yeah,
yeah,
from Chechnya. So look, I mean, I've been to Russia 3 times, I've been to Chechnya once, and after being in Chechnya, it's like, how can you compare an Aussie kid who's privileged, who doesn't have to really, you know, always got to worry about if his Wi-Fi is connected to his iPad,
yeah,
compared to kids that are out there literally like with nothing to, you know, they got, you know, they just appreciate everything they get in life, and they got to fight for it, and kids over there are literally, you know, fighting from a young age, and that's why that's why you got like someone like Khabib who's running around wrestling bears, and as I said, the modern Australia, all I see is kids TikToking, talk about their iPads, talk about their bloody that Fortnite game, and just all
yeah,
this stuff. Too much technology, too much privilege in general. Don't have to. Yeah. Compared to the, you know, like these guys like the Kazakhs and the Chechens and the Dagestanians.
yeah.
I mean, how can you compete with these guys?
There's it might have been a book or there's like a study done. You can go back through boxing history and sort of like generationally and sort of pick out so which, you know, which how am I trying to say this? Which group of people are really good at fight, like who are the world champions? And so, you know, back in the, I don't know, 20s and 30s in America, it was the Irish and the Italians,
It was
Jewish fighters, you know, back
Jewish,
then as
very good
well.
fighters. Yeah, yeah, 100%.
And you come through, and obviously, you know, post Cold War, it's Cuban fighters, and then you get like nowadays, you get all the sort of Eastern Bloc, former Soviet countries coming out, and the sort of thing that ties them all together is that they all those communities, whether if they were in America or wherever it was, were like sort of lower class, I suppose. Not
Yeah,
they
but
hadn't
they're
reached
from
that
poor
middle class status.
backgrounds. Yeah, yeah,
Poor background, so they were fighting out of something.
yeah.
All those
Oh,
all
100%.
those Italians and Irish fighters coming off, you
Well,
know,
they were
working the
all
docks and then
immigrants. They were immigrants.
all
Yeah,
immigrants. Yeah,
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 yeah. Off the boat. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Well, mate, that's a good point you just brought up. So the Italian, the Irish, and the Jewish, if they weren't boxers and that, mate, they were gangsters, and that's where all
yeah,
the mafia. I mean, the Italian mafia. You know, they were all the guys that wanted a bit more than what they were getting, and the
yeah,
Irish and the Jewish, mate. Look, I know a lot of I love, you know, watching reading a lot of the the Mafia books. But I mean, you've got guys like Maya Lansky and Bugsy Siegel, they were the Jewish, and you got Lucky Luciano with the Italians, and you got the Irish, and a lot of them were called the Westies, and if they weren't sort of the same thing, they've either done it legitly, they've done it in the ring, or they've done it illegitimately. But I mean, at the end of the day, whatever they've done to feed their families because they were poor,
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. And it's still a thing that's ongoing. And like you look at sort of who's at the top of boxing. Broadly speaking, you could go into gyms in New York and Vegas, LA, Chicago, Detroit, and who's in there? It's hard scrabble kids for the most part,
Well, usually it's the African American and the Mexican Hispanic. I mean, the Kronk gym. If you went in Detroit, you were there. My friend Pierre Karam was there for years, and you went down there and you were there, mate. You had to have your A game on every day because there was some young, whether African American or Hispanic boy that were just going to take your head off. If you go to the Gleason's gym, I just spoke to a champion the other night, and he was telling me about the Gleason gym days. Hector Camacho, Marvin Hagler, some of the guys that would go into there. You know what I mean? So you're talking about that. I mean, Australia. I think back in the old days, in my grandfather's time, like back when Vic Patrick was fighting, or Jack Carroll, or Dave Sands, there was still that poor Australian. Boxing was still the only way for a sort of a poor Aussie to make money. But now we are too entitled, we're too privileged. You won't get that person boxing for that reason now, I don't think.
Yeah. It's true. Yeah, it's true. And I suppose we're both boxing guys. Like, it's good. I don't want to say it's good in a way, but you don't want it to. That's really your only thing. Although I would suggest anyone gets into boxing just for the discipline and the respect, or jiu-jitsu as well. Similar. Yeah.
Anything. Look, anything that keeps off the street these days. I'm in Melbourne now, and the crime here between teens is at an all-time high. I'm assuming it's the same in Sydney. It's just off its head, mate. So if these kids can get off the streets, and I don't care if it's badminton or table tennis, but if they're in the combat sports, they want to let out some anger. Boxing, BJJ, MMA, whatever it is, as long as they're not outside with knives, doing home invasions and robbing people at knife and gunpoint.
Yeah, 100%.
Anything but that, and something needs to be done, because Australia is really needs to be addressed at this next election. The crime with the youths Australia-wide has to be addressed.
You got a gym in Melbourne, right?
Yes.
You got one in Tassie as well? Just Melbourne?
No, I did have one in Tassie years ago, and that was for troubled youth in the western suburbs, which was very successful. Had a young kid who'll be the next future middleweight Australian champion, Sab Wells. I started him off at the age of 9. And he didn't know his life was sort of, he was a bit troubled and looking down, he's going down the bad path, and I changed his life, got him into boxing, and he become a 4 or 5 time national champion. He had two really good fights at Callum Peters in the amateurs, 2 or 3 times, and so he was at that level. Callum Peter was the one that would sort of stop him from going away, but now he's pro, he's 4-1, and he was on my last show, but he contracted, got COVID, I think 2 or 3 days before the fight, so he had to pull out. But yeah, look, I changed his life through boxing, because it's good to see, some of these kids just need someone to take an interest and be a role model in their lives, and it only takes that one person to show them that you care about them, and that you can show them that you're the right path to lead themselves on the right track, because it's a lot of these kids have got no one that's got an interest in them, to show them.
And you'd know even better than me, both of our great mate Jacko's, case in point, Luke Jackson, boxing. How many times has boxing saved his life?
Yeah, sure.
He's very open with it.
I know more than anyone with Luke. I mean, 100%. I mean, he probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for boxing. So it's been a great savior for him, and he shares his story and inspires a lot of kids too, especially down Tassie when we were doing our shows, and when he was fighting down there at the height of his career before he fought Fred for the world title. So many kids looked up to him, and he had his own gym with a lot of kids. And I mean, he still tells his story now. So look, but it really needs to be addressed. The recent, it's just ridiculous what's happened at the moment. But let's
Yeah.
discuss one of our another champions. I think he's the only current male world champion. We've got a few females, but Jai Opetai. So Mick Francis has got him on, and Eddie Hearn and Spencer Brown, Gold Star Promotions. I think that's going on. Is it May 13th or May 14th?
13th on the Gold Coast, I think. Yep. And I'm pretty sure
Check that.
I got a WhatsApp message from Mick Francis as we're recording, so I haven't been able to see it. But I
May
think they've just
13th.
announced
May
another
13th
fight.
it is. May
They've
13th.
just announced another fight. I can't see what it is because I'd have to close the thing. But
Yeah.
Jai Opetai, man, superstar. I'm such a big fan of Jai's. And look, like as much as I'm looking forward to world title defense, I really want to see him in that Zerto fight. Those big time fights. Like I don't know to explain to you how sort of boxing works, but I just really want to see him in unification bouts and then up to heavyweight eventually.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, it's not through lack of wanting. I mean, I know Jai and his team. That's all they want is unification fights. But unfortunately, boxing is about time and essence, And the fact is, at the moment, the time's not right. So they have to. Jai's a throwback to the old fighters. He likes to stay active. And I always tell everyone, and I repeat myself all the time, inactivity kills fighters' careers.
Yeah.
You got to be active. The old champions, the Harry Grebs and the Benny Leonards fought ridiculously amount of times a year. I know it's probably not the way it is now, but even Chavez, I was saying the other day, Julio Cesar Chavez and James Toney fought regular. These days, 2-3 times a year is not enough. So the fact that he wants to stay busy, Jai's a throwback. And when he does get the Ramirez fight, there's no doubt in my mind he's getting the job done and will grab those extra 2 belts.
Yeah, 100%. And like interviewing Jai, there's a couple of guys that I've interviewed, and like you ask them something. I'm just trying to think of what it might be. It's just like I think I remember I did an interview with him. He was in Saudi. I think that it just had to relinquish the IBF, so it must have been sort of a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
So it was like the day after that. We were talking on Zoom, and I sort of it was just we were just talking about the situation and boxing politics, and I was like, how much does it piss you off, this, that, and whatever? And he's just like, bro, I don't care about all this stuff. I just want to fight, and I just want to, But there was just this the way he said it, like in his eyes, he has real intense eyes, and just his just I don't know what it is, just this mentality, this focus of all the stuff that I think or we think he cares about, doesn't care about it. He just wants to get in and punch on. And there's only a couple of guys. He's one. Liam Paro. It was the same kind of thing. Like I think I interviewed him in the lead up to the Matthias fight last year, and I was like, oh, you have to go over to his backyard, and it's a matchroom show, and blah, blah, all the odds stacked against you, and he's just like, it's not a thing. Like I'm gonna win this fight. I'm gonna win this fight. It doesn't enter. Those two, and Tim Tszyu as well. He's got that same. It's pretty rare. Like guys blow up or they buy into the hype and stuff. But every now and then you just get a moment talking to some of these guys, and it's like, oh, that's what makes you guys different. Like that's one of those things that not only makes you different from us, but makes you world champions.
Jai Opetai, 100%, mate. He gets that focus and zoomed in. He's not interested in none of the bullshit. He's about just fighting and building his legacy. He's a throwback to the old school. Nobody touches Jai cruiserweight. If he gets a chance to be undisputed, he will be. And he realistically can move the heavyweight. I mean, I personally think the Usyk will probably come and go, be retired before that ever happens. But you got to look at this though. The Usyk dynasty is going to come to an end soon. The Anthony Joshua dynasty is coming to an end soon. The Fury dynasty, he says it's done. I think he'll fight AJ still, but that's just my opinion. But that's coming to an end soon. So you got all these guys. I mean, Zhang looks like he's pretty much had it now. Then you do have something with Wilder. I mean, Wilder's pretty much done now. But so the guys that have been on top for the last few years are pretty much on the way out. So you're gonna have you got Moses, obviously Tatamanu, who's
Moses Tama, yeah.
You've got Justis Huni, who our own fighter, who's ranked number 1 now. And you got some other good fighters, but then you got Jai. I think Jai, at the time he moves up, the time he adds a little bit more weight onto himself, and he's already got the right height because he's the same height as Uzi. I think he's going to dominate, mate. I think we're going to have our. I know Lucas Brown won a version of the world title and done a good job in Chechnya too, because to go over there and win, that's saying something. Trust me. Trust me. But Jai's going to be he can be our real, full legitly, heavyweight champion, I think.
Yeah.
Do you agree with a lot of them guys sort of on their 100%. Way out? And I mean, not saying Jai can't beat those guys too, but at the right time, I think it's going to be the perfect time. The time he's ready, by the time he's cleaning out the cruiserweight division, I think it's going to be very open. It'll be pretty much him and possibly at Moses. If Moses is at that top level, we'll still have to wait and see. I believe he can be, but he needs to be tested a bit more as well.
Yeah, no, spot on. And this is what I've been.
And this is what I've been hoping
as well. Dubois will be around for a couple of years, but
I think Parker's pretty much going to be on the way out soon too. I think he can. He's probably got 2 or 3 real good fights left too.
And this is what I've sort of been hoping, or I think I've mentioned to a few people just talking boxing, but as much as Jai is impatient now, I think and exactly what you're saying, it must be so frustrating now not being able to get those big unification fights. But I think by the time, and whether it's 18 months, 2 years, maybe even shorter, by the time he goes up to heavyweight, it's going to be a real changing of the generation. Like you say, Usyk, Fury, Joshua, Wilder, Zhang, the guys that have been the champs for the last sort of almost decade now, they'll be either gone or maybe Opetai goes up and makes his name against one of those aging heavyweights. That's how multiple people have sort of made their name. And so I'm hopeful, and I hope it works out that although it's going to be so frustrating now, in a couple of years, it could be one of the best heavyweights in the world as well. And Dubois will be around for a couple of years, and Moses Atama, they look like the 2 next likely guys too.
I don't want to put you on the spot, mate, but I guess I am. So who's going to do more damage in the heavyweight division? Is it going to be Justis Huni or Jai Opetai from Australia? I mean, realistically.
Very good question. I would have to say, and just purely on the evidence that I've got that we have now, that Jai, just because he's become a world champ, he's proven he's done it, he's been there. I think Justis Huni can get there. I think he will. But you just haven't seen him tested it's been a tough couple of years for Justis Huni, man. Actually, I was going to want to ask you as well, but he was thrown into the spotlight, pro debut in a big fight, like in a Australian title fight on TV. He's had to develop under the spotlight. You know what I mean? Back in the day, even now, but generally, you fight your first sort of 10, 15 fights at the RSL in clubs and pubs, and
very true.
There's 20 people there.
Very true.
He's done it on national television learning the craft as he goes, and then obviously the injuries as well.
Even Tim Tszyu come up on around Australia on people's undercards. So pretty much the only other one that's come up like Justis is probably Nikita Tszyu, thrown as the main event first time and other times. So the same thing, because not even Tim had to really deal with being main event for a long time. Justis, Nikita, Harry Garside was thrown into a big spot right out of the Olympics. I think he had a few undercards first. He would have been. What was his pro debut? I'm trying to remember. Not that he's fought that many
Not,
anyway.
yeah,
He fought a Tasmanian called Late McFerrin. He wasn't the main event that
that's
night though.
right.
That was on an undercard.
Gallon card? Yeah.
That was the undercard, yeah. So
But it's still like on TV on a big
yeah, of
platform
course.
kind of thing.
Yeah. Being a bit more out there than you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. And just as a side note, like some of the, I don't know what you call it, like club shows, some of the Paul Nazari shows out in Sydney, and
shout out to Paul Nazari.
Shout out to Paul,
one of
the
the
greats.
true fight. Look, and that's what I say. Look, all the guys that do the TV shows, they do a great job in this country. Mick Francis and George and Matty Rose and Trent, no limit. But I mean, but like without the Paul Nazaris and the Billy Husseins and the guys like myself that do, what do you call it? The smaller shows or the, we're the grassroots of boxing, because all these fighters come up on the shows where there's no TV, and but all the stars got to start somewhere, don't they? So
100%. Ricky Colosimo now.
Carlo, yeah. I don't know Ricky, but I've heard he's been doing some good work. Well done to him. Ange DiCarlo, Stevie Della, all the people that have come up and been doing this for years, and Brian Matruda in Melbourne, obviously, and all the guys, Peter Maniatis, and there's been so many guys that probably don't get appreciated enough. But at the end of the day, you don't get these guys without somewhere to start.
Yeah. You're going to get a call from someone we've forgotten. It always happens, right? When you start naming names.
Apologise to
anyone we've forgotten.
Anyone we've forgotten. There's so many. I could have kept going for a long time, but anyway.
And I genuinely, some of the funnest nights are at those shows. Like just the people, the crowd, the fights, the fighters. I mean, going and covering big fights, Vegas or wherever else, or Saudi for you. It's amazing. It's awesome. Like it's the best. But some of the best nights you'll get are at those local shows. I'm telling you. I want
to give you a tip. Okay, I want to give you a big tip. So you're a great reporter, and I know you'll probably do some international stuff eventually. Don't go taking my job, but listen, I'm going to tell you this: if you ever go to a fight in Japan, if you ever go to, and it could be an in-away fight, it could be whoever, because they do great shows. Do not crash any of their change rooms and be a +2, because there's only one person allowed to check the wraps. But I made a mistake of thinking 2 could go in. So I followed Mike Altamura into Inaway's change rooms when I wasn't welcome there. I wasn't meant to be in the change room. So after 5 to 10 minutes of me sitting there, standing out, obviously, because I'm the only, besides Mike, who's actually meant to be the non-Japanese person in the room, I sort of was getting a few looks, and then I got told that I sort of had to leave. But so for anyone out there, just make sure in Japan they're very strict, and it's only one person go in the change rooms, not 2.
Oh, noted. I just on Japan and away flights. I got my flight details and my hotel. The info sent to me in an email.
Goodwin.
The day, and then the next day, Goodman
So
cuts. It was the second time that he got cut. And, devastated for Sammy as well. But that's going to be my first time going to Japan too. So I was devastated for myself as well.
Yeah. So look, it was awesome, and Mr. Honda and all the crew there, they're great at what they do, but they're very precise. And I remember I hijacked the press conference because I think you're only allowed to ask one question, hand the mic over. I asked 3 questions, so I didn't. So I think there was a lot of talk about the Aussie guy crashing the press conference, and no, it wasn't crashing the press, hijacking the press conference. Hijacking, yeah. So Mike Altamura, my dear friend, he knows all about it.
One of the greats.
Yeah, so one of the all-time greats. So
because they're so respectful, they're so everything's quite orderly.
Beautiful country, beautiful people.
Yeah.
Can't wait to go
back home.
Was
it your question to Mike? It went viral when he spoke about who was the fighter growing up?
Bob Arum. Question to Bob Arum was the Pakaway and Inouye. What was the sort of, were they on the same? Bob Arum come out and said that Inouye his career is greater than Pacquiao's. So, and that went viral. That went crazy.
Yeah, that was the one.
And the
You've had a
next
few
day,
viral moments though.
what we're going to talk about me falling off the stage at the Ring Magazine Awards. Maybe we
I
could
was
bring that up.
I was going to wait till you brought it up. I didn't want to bring it
I'm
up.
happy to talk about it. I don't hold anything, mate. My life's public. There's no secrets here. But I was at the Ring Magazine Awards at the gala night in Saudi. It was the red carpet night, which Oscar de la Hoya was handing over the Ring Magazine to Your Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh. And it was a great night. Everyone was there. Lennox Lewis, Roberto Duran, Neymar, the soccer star, everyone you can think of. So I'm humbled to be there. Towards the end of the night, I decided I wouldn't mind getting a photo with the Ring Magazine backdrop, which I thought, why not? So I gave my phone to one of the blokes and I said, take a photo. And I've gone one step, two step, drop. I went missing, totally in darkness. You could not see me anymore. But I jumped up quickly. I think I beat the count of 4. But I did not know I had done this at the back. I crashed Teddy Atlas's interview, which was on Boxing Social in UK. So that went viral. That went everywhere. Tyson Fury's team the next day at the hotel in Riyadh. All when I went down to the lobby, all went, there he is. And they said they haven't laughed as much in their life. And I got that many messages on Instagram saying, best thing I've ever seen. I'm going to keep it for the days I'm sad. Watched it 100 times. I went, it was just crazy. Yeah.
It was, but you owned it as well. Like I think you shared it. I saw it on your Instagram.
I did own it. I had to own it.
You have to.
I was a little bit embarrassed, and I thought, I hope no one's seen it. So I jumped up real quick and looked around, but I was in the back of Ted Atlas' interview, so that was just crazy. Yeah.
Oh, the great Teddy Atlas as well. He's another. Yeah. You never miss a YouTube video of Teddy. For a guy like me who just sort of tries to take it all in. I'm not a boxer, so you'd learn so much. It was just crazy.
Yeah, it's been awesome, mate. I've had him on my podcast. I've interviewed him, I think 3 times in Saudi. Always gives me his time. I'm probably going to get him on my podcast soon. He's an absolute legend, mate. And so, mate, a few more Aussies. You mentioned Liam Paro. What do you know is next for Liam? Do you know?
I've heard. Well, he's obviously signed with No Limit a month or so ago.
Yep.
And they also announced that they're taking a card up to Cairns, which is pretty close to Mackay, which is where Liam Paro is from. So I asked him, I said, that sounds good, right? That's a date. And he's like, that's perfect. That sounds perfect. Yep. So I forget what date that is. Maybe June.
Yep.
So you'd love for that. And I haven't checked in, in a couple of weeks about where that is, but everyone watching this knows sort of how quickly and fast boxing changes. But they wanted to, if it was Paro in Cairns, they were looking to get him a big fight. But then I heard he might be on that Gold Coast card as well. They were trying to stack that with, that's hopefully going to be the Tim Tszyu Thurman fight. And thinking about maybe getting Liam Paro and Liam Wilson on the same card.
And how realistic is that? Obviously, given that Tim gets the job done, which, as I said, I'm sure he will on the weekend. I know Thurman. That was the way it was meant to play out. Obviously, after Brock but nothing. As you know, boxing, anything can happen. Now he's got back on the now he's fighting again. Thurman. Do you think that fight with Tim, do you reckon it'll play out like that, or might he get a call in America and someone want Keith?
This is what I wrote the day after. Is that they might have created a monster. Keith Thurman hadn't fought in a couple of years. Everyone was wondering, has he still got it? And now he comes out, gets a 3rd round knockout win, looked pretty good. I thought, even for 36. Maybe he goes back and gets an offer from people who've been throwing Spence's name up there, Errol Spence, and maybe he goes back and gets an offer and all the work that they put in to get Thurman a fight and then build into Tim Tszyu. Maybe they created too much momentum and he gets something else. But then again, I was told that the contract is signed, or Thurman has signed
Yeah.
the contract to fight Tim. So
So with these dates where Tim's fighting, this weekend, Thurman, June, is that looking like, obviously 2 wins there, a third fight will probably be back in America against a big name? Do you think that that's the way that's going to be shaping up? Having a fight, say, this weekend in June, and then it'll be open for a fight later in the year, most likely in the US. All
yeah,
going
so
well. Yeah.
like in a perfect world, yeah, like in a perfect world for Tim Tszyu, he goes out, looks phenomenal this weekend, puts on a really good performance and a win, backs it up with another win against Thurman. Then there's no reason if he looks really good and wins those 2 fights well, there's no reason
Yeah.
end of the year back in the States.
Yeah.
But then again, it's not the end of the world if he fights again in Australia
No,
later
of course
this year.
not. No.
They can do whatever. Like
Yeah.
they can bring big names out here now.
Yeah. I just
So
know Tim. I just
yeah,
know Tim's mentality, mate. He's got the Mamba
yeah.
mentality. I know
He,
what he's
he,
like.
he'll want to be
And
back there after beating Spencer. If he beats Jake Spencer, he'll want to
100%,
be back over there.
100%. Yeah. Well,
Obviously,
let's talk about the younger Zoo, the butcher. I haven't heard Nikita's name
Butcher.
mentioned for a while. What's news on the butcher?
I saw Nikita today. He was actually training up at the gym when Tim was like Nikita trains just before Tim, and
Yep.
bloody hell, he was putting in a session. He was training properly for over 2 hours that we were there. But he does have this hand issue,
Still.
and
Still.
yeah, so he had surgery after the Mizudia fight.
Yeah.
It was in was it a cast when we were in Orlando in October, maybe.
Yep.
And yeah, there's just been a few setbacks. So
Yep.
I think they wanted, or they'd hoped for Nikita to be back on one of those May June cards. There's a May card in Sydney, which
Yeah,
looks like Sammy Goodman.
I heard about that today, actually.
Yeah. So yeah,
But I won't say where. But I did hear about it.
but it feels like that. It feels like Nikita Tszyu's comeback is going to get delayed. It's going to get pushed back. He's looking fit as fuck. I'll tell you that. Like he looks in shape. He looks in good shape. But I understand the hand is not where they need it to be. And to be fair, I hadn't actually realised it, or I hadn't thought of it, or put two and two together. He was training. It would have been 2 hours by the time I got there. He was training. I left, and he was still training. Didn't punch anything. He was doing a lot of like band work, lots of shadow boxing, skipping, push-ups. He didn't hit a boxing bag, not one single time. So that's probably a fairly good indication. I hope I haven't given away any camp secrets or anything like that. But I don't think it's a super state secret that his comeback isn't as advanced as they wanted it to be.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. I hope he comes back soon. So we've got Sammy Goodman, he'll be back soon, and he'll be looking to get right back up there again. And I mean, geez, what he's gone through mentally would be absolutely just huge to get through. So I mean, missing out on twice against Inoue, and obviously the big payday, and just the chance of undisputed. I mean, offers like that don't come around, all the time. So I'm sure that he'll be looking to put on a great performance when he fights.
Yeah, I was actually at the gym when he got cut the first time in December, and it was just like maybe there was 20 people watching on, and hubbub, people talking, sparring's going on, and then he just sort of reels away. He has big headgear on, so he can't take it off, but it's just blood dripping down his face, and you're sort of thinking, oh, where's the cut? What does it look like? And immediately you knew like where it was. It's not good news, and it was sort of okay. There was Ryan Wilmot was jumped up. Obviously, has a close look, and he's like, hey, we can glue it up. It's going to be fine. Like, got to put a positive spin on it. The doctor was there. It's Alan Saunders, I think his name is. Forgive me if I got that wrong.
Yeah.
He was having a look and going, same thing, trying to put a positive spin on it. And Pete Maczewski, Sam's manager, walks up, has one look, turns around and just goes, "Fuck," and walks off. And I think that's when everyone realised, oh, it's not looking good. And
Yeah.
Sammy took the gloves and headgear off, and there's this dark stairwell at sort of the front door, but at the back of the gym kind of thing. And he was sort of sitting up there with an ice pack on, and just, I think he was probably crying. I think he was crying, sitting up there. You would be just sorry, there, just absolutely devastated. And then he goes and gets stitches, and me and Pete and Luke's Sam's trainer go next
Yeah.
door for a cup of coffee, and Sam came back about 45 minutes later with stitches and just deflated, just absolutely gutted.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's one of those moments where it's like I was sort of sitting there, just like, fuck, what do you say? Like, bloke's just lost the chance of a lifetime and a good paycheck as well, and
Yeah.
yeah, fuck. And then we were sitting there and got a message saying that Jai Opetai's opponent had pulled out that morning. Fuck, who was supposed to fight? And then they eventually got David Noika.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah,
I
gee.
can't remember the bloke's name now, but
Yeah, I
it
know,
was
Yeah, yeah.
a heavy sort of hour and a half for Australian boxing.
Australian boxing, yeah,
Tell you
yeah,
that.
for sure.
I'm just trying to plug my charger in here because I've got the low battery thing, but and I've got I don't know if you got anyone with an iPhone that they've had for a couple of years will know that I'm at the stage of having an old iPhone where unless the power cord is at the exact right angle,
Yeah,
it's not
they won't show.
charging.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, mate. I'm due for an upgrade very soon.
Yeah.
Before I let you go, mate, it's been obviously great chatting with you, and especially about Australian boxing. I really want to get back to the grassroots, and talk about the Aussie fighters, mate. That's one of the good reasons I want to get you on. And mate, what do you think though? Where do you see Aussie boxing at the moment? And what's your prediction over the next couple of years? I mean, Matchroom's, doing shows now. There's a few fighters been going over to Saudi lately. Obviously, there's a lot more, I guess, opportunities for fighters to fight internationally now.
Yeah.
What's your opinions?
I honestly think that Australian boxing is in the best state that I've seen it. Like and admittedly, I can't go back much more than sort of 10 to 15 years in terms of experience.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I know sort of back in the day, but it feels like it's in a really good place. A lot of opportunity. Matchroom coming down. By the time we get to Jai's fight, it'll be 3 cards here. 3 world title, well, be 4 world title fights with the 2 with Sky and Chanika on
yeah.
George's card as well. So
Yep.
2 Jai fights in those 2, and I don't know why. I don't know and I don't know if this is a fair sort of comparison, but I remember up until sort of maybe the last 5 or 6 years, there'd be Aussie fighters get a world title shot, but they're just going over
Yeah, get bowled
to
over. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Breakdown.
yeah. And I don't want to name names, disrespect guys,
No,
but
no, of course not. I know what you
everyone
mean.
knows,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Now it doesn't feel like we have to do that, or Aussie boxers have to do that anymore. It feels like you can either bring big names out here, or now you can go to Saudi and get a good, evenly matched, fair world title fight where you're not just going over
Yeah,
to
yeah.
get bowled over. You know what I mean?
Of course.
And like anyone watching this can spout off half a dozen fights where an Aussie's gone over just to make up the numbers. But I can't think of one recently where an Australian's gone over to fight for a world title where it's just like, they're ranked 15th, in the IBF order, for
Yeah,
argument's sake,
yeah,
to have this fight.
yeah.
And for me, that's a real sign of, we've got legit world title challenges and the ability to bring fights here,
Yeah.
or get the backing to go to wherever, Saudi or Vegas or LA, to
Definitely.
have a legit world title fight.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Yeah,
No Limit's done a great job, obviously, in the last few years. I mean, they put on some great cards. They're a big reason why boxing's, in the way it is in Australia, done a great job. And obviously, with Tim and Nikita all coming through, and Mick Francis, the Tasman fighter, building Joe Opetai, up, and Justis Huni and all the guys, and even more fighters he's bringing up. He's doing an amazing job. He's got Connor Wallace as
Connor
well.
Wallace, yeah. Max
And as I said,
McIntyre is another one. Max
yeah,
McIntyre is a
yeah.
star on the rise, knockout
Yep.
artist.
And
One to watch out
obviously
for.
he's good. He's very good. And then and obviously George, what he done against Tszyu, obviously over there, and then coming back and having the two Haney fights and the Lomachenko fight, really got us back on the map too. So it's been some really good.
Yeah,
And I tell you now, I think that the term for Aussie boxing in the recent years, I mean, I go back to my era, with Team Fennick, best stable in boxing in Australia. Skinny, Hussein Hussey, Victor Chinian, Danny Green, Sacco Bicker, Nader Hendon, Gary Sinclair, Daniel Gill, Ben Rabar, all, the best of the Glenn Kelly, Shannon Taylor, the best of the best.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was all I trained with every day, and I watched spar every day. But I mean, I think though, to get back to after the Green Mundine era was finished, because they really were amazing for us, Danny Green and Anthony Mundine. I think with Jeff Horn's win over Pacquiao, that resurged Australian boxing, and that's 100%.
Yeah, spot on. That was the turning point. I think I wrote a story about that a year or so, maybe 2 years ago. Just sort of where we are now is back to it feels like what Jeff Horn did that day.
Yeah.
And even he could round 9, how he got through that round 9
that's right.
and came out and but yeah, Australian boxing has had some incredible moments.
That's a fair call, though, isn't it? That's a fair call.
Yeah.
From that time onwards, then we had the emergence of Tim Tszyu, and Tim, I think him, beating Jeff Horn pretty much passed the torch when he stopped him in amazing and emphatic fashion over there, and then with what George done with TA, again, was unbelievable. So, a lot of them key moments have pretty much got Australian boxing where it is right now, and look, everyone plays a part in it though. You guys, the media, the promoters, the managers, everyone plays a part in why it's going so well now. So everyone deserves a pat on the back, mate. We all want the best for Australian boxing. We all want the fighters to get the big fights. We want our fighters to make money. We don't want a guy fighting all his life and then having to, go back and work on the roads. You know what I mean? Like we want the fighters to be able to, hopefully retire and be able to support their family without having to go and break their back, mate. I mean, and that's not really, there's so many bad stories in boxing. I mean, there's heaps, but I mean, if we can, get these guys to build a life for themselves and their family from boxing, I mean, that's the best, that's all you can hope for anyone, so.
Yeah, and going way back to the start of the conversation where you start out boxing, however old you are, that's not what you're thinking about, is it? It's trying to get to the Olympics or world titles.
Your first trophy. You want your first trophy.
Trophies and medals.
You want your trophy, you want your medal.
Even things like your first singlet or your pair of gloves or boots or whatever.
Your first pair of boots. I remember I fought my first two amateur fights in sneakers. Mum, they got me a pair of boots, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm legit. And getting your first state tracksuit, and then, God forbid, get your Australian tracksuit, which should be the pinnacle for any amateur box. I mean, it's the best,
Yeah. Just on boots and boxing footwear. I have this thing about boxing footwear and what guys wear. Callum Peters made his pro debut in the last year, and he's wearing a pair of indoor soccer boots, pink, because that's what Lomachenko and Usyk used to wear. And Callum Peters he's just a character, man. He's a freak boxer.
He's a freak of a fighter, mate. He's one to watch. He's one of the big, No Limit done a very smart thing in signing him because he's the future. He's an unbelievable amateur, but he'll be a good pro as well. But we know he's had the one fight. I'm looking forward to seeing him live this weekend, actually. But I mean, he's a great fighter. Callum Peter is very, very good.
And a natural, like, he was out at the Olympics. Obviously, he got a bit of attention and sort of media experience there, but interviewed him before and after his professional debut, and it's just like, oh, this guy must have been doing this for 10 years at least. He's got the gift of the gab. He can talk.
Yeah.
Cool story. Great fighter, which helps.
Yeah.
And the pink footwear to go with it, which I loved. Yeah.
He's got a good engine on him, mate. He can throw punches all day. I know a few of the boys have been on training camps with him overseas, and he's very, very good. But I mean, yeah, look, mate, I'm looking forward to catch up with you this weekend up in Newcastle, Zoo Castle.
Yeah, mate, absolutely. Zoo Castle, we're back. It's back for Tim, but the couple of fights that Tim had up there in 2021, that was sort of where I covered boxing, and I was doing it for another organisation at the time, Sporting News, and we do it here and there. But that year, it was where we sort of kicked it into overdrive. We're like, oh, we'll give this a real crack. So a Zoo fight week in Newcastle is sort of going back to where it all sort of started as well for us.
Well, let me tell you, before we go, I'll share a story with you. In 1998, I travelled up to Newcastle with his father, Tszyu, and Johnny Lewis, when Tszyu fought Calvin Grove, the man that beat Jeff Fennick towards the end of Jeff's career. Jeff was, obviously was after the Zuma Nelson two fights where he got ripped off in one of them and had the loss. But so I went up with Tszyu to Newcastle in 98 when he knocked out Calvin Grove in one round, and then I was up there through a lot of Mundine's fights and now back up there again for Tim. So it's that's how far I go back. That's how far I go back, mate. Yeah, I was 20 years old back in '98 with the arguably one of the greatest fighters of all time, Costa. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm just I have to bring up his boxer because I did while we're talking about Costa Zoo fights, I did a story it'll be 2-3 years ago now, but so he debuted on Jeff's card down in Melbourne.
Nelson, yep.
The rematch down in Melbourne. And obviously Costa Zoo, amateur superstar, Olympian, world champion, that kind of stuff. He's the A side. So he's fighting, and I bet you probably know who he fought, Daryl Hiles.
Daryl Hiles, former 1988 Seoul Olympian.
There's nothing I could ask you about boxing. You're just like, fought this guy, fought that guy, mate. It's incredible. Daryl Hiles. And I tracked down Daryl Hiles, and I said,
Queensland.
Yeah, Queensland.
He's homeless now, actually.
Yeah, he was doing it rough when I spoke to him. Had a tough old life after boxing, but I got in touch with him. I tracked him down and got in touch with him. I said, I really want to do a story. I think it was the 20-year or 30-year anniversary of Costa Zoo's debut. And I'll try and find the guy he fought. So Daryl Hiles, and got him on the phone for about 45 minutes.
You tracked him down. That's awesome.
Yeah, tracked him down, got him on the phone.
That's awesome.
And he's telling me, some great stories of because he was at the same Olympics as Costa was at. So
he was a good amateur. He was a good amateur.
Yeah. So he was a good fighter, good talent. Like he wasn't a bum that Costa fought in his debut. But the funny story I remember was he's at Prince's Park down in Melbourne. It's pissing down rain. Daryl Hiles is waiting to walk out. He's gloved up, got a robe on, everything. No sponsors. Like he was doing it for doing it for $5,000 or whatever. And he's waiting to walk out, and a bloke walks up to him and says, "What sponsors you got in your shorts?" And he goes, "Oh man, I don't have any." And he goes, "I'll give you $500 to wear these shorts instead of those. It's got my business logo on it." So they're calling his name, and he's changing his trunks right in the tunnel there before he goes out and fights Costa Zoo. It was such a cool yarn. And then obviously, the other story about that is Johnny Lewis telling Costa, start fast in the first round or something, and language breakdown. And
no, he said
to knock him out.
He said, "I want you to win the first round, start fast, but win the first round." And Costa Zoo thought he said, "I got to win it in the first round."
That's
So he
right,
thought
yeah.
Johnny said you got to get it over in the first round. So he went out there to knock him out. It was a mere, but Johnny just said get out. And I said that to my fighters, try and win the first round because that's a good start. Yeah, you win the first round, you set it, you set yourself up there to be in control. But yeah, he got mixed up and knocked him out of the first round. Yeah. Mate, what the guy should have done, the guy should have put the sponsorship on Daryl Halls' boots, mate. Might have been. That's what I thought you were going to say, actually. But yeah, no, Kostazoo come to Australia at the right time. It was just after the Fennick era, because Jeff, obviously we had many great for Barry Michaels, Lestrellis, but I mean, Jeff Fennick was pretty much the Australian icon all through the 80s, and all of a sudden this juggernaut with a pigtail and power in both hands and broken English captured the heart of all of Australia. And I mean, everyone loves Kostazoo, and they still do to this day. I mean, and no one can do what he could do. He could just, I mean, he had 300 something amateur fights, under the Soviet Union banner. And I mean, he just had a great array of punches, where to hit, where not to be hit. And I tell everyone this, all my amateur students, if you want to watch perfection in amateur boxing, rewatch the 1991 World Amateur Championships gold medal fight between Kostazoo and Vernon Forrest from America. It's on YouTube. It was held in Sydney. It was held in. You haven't seen it?
I haven't seen it. I'll have to go look at it.
Listen, I'm going to give you a bit of homework, okay? I know you're a great journalist and all this, and you work for the media and everyone in Sydney, but I'm going to tell you this: Vernon Forrest become a two-time world champion. He beat Shane Mosley twice after Mosley beat De La Hoya. Vernon Forrest was a legend, and as the amateurs, it was a gun. And in the 1991 amateur world titles were in Sydney. De La Hoya was there. De La Hoya got beat his first fight against Marco Rudolph in Germany, who De La Hoya beat for the gold medal when Barcelona got revenge on him when he looked up to the sky for his mother, who passed away. And Justin Rousseau, one of our greatest fighters, ever got bronze medal at these world championships. But anyway, Kostazoo won all his fights, and then he went into the final against Vernon Forrest, a tall, rangy African-American fighter. And Kostazoo put on the best display of hit and not be hit, but that close. He was just right there in front of Forrest. Every time Forrest would throw punches, he did slip, boom, boom, and counter. Please watch it. It's the best display of amateur boxing you've ever seen. Better than Lomachenko, better than anything.
Wow.
Yep.
I'll go watch it. I'll go watch this tonight. Yeah.
And he should have got voted best boxer of the tournament. They gave it to a great Cuban, Robert Badelio he was super heavyweight Cuban, great fighter. He used to move and won probably the fastest super heavyweight you've ever seen. I think he won about 2 Olympics in a row, but he died in a car accident, unfortunately. But he stole the best fighter of the tournament. But everyone agrees that Kostazoo was the best fighter. And not long after that, Johnny Lewis and Jeff Fennick and Bill Morty done the deal for Costa. They'd seen Costa before that tournament though,
right?
And they brought him back out with Natasha to look around Australia. And the legend of the Kostazoo was born in Australia. Hence is how now we've got Tim and Nikita. So that's the bit of the background there. From they seen him at a tournament before the World Championships, but then that was the one that secured it in Sydney, and he liked Sydney. And then they took him around and showed him around, and they said this, and this. Went home and come back.
You might know if it's a true story or not. Where they'd seen him, they invited him out to Sydney, and we want to sign you. Do you have anything you need? Thinking he'd make some big monetary demands or mention microwave oven, right?
Microwave oven.
That was all he asked for.
Yeah, he wanted the microwave.
That's great. Because it's one of the stories that everyone tells, but I don't know if it's true or.
Before we go, mate, this is how far I go back. So in 1996, when Johnny Lewis met me at the Nationals to invite me to Sydney to train at the Newtown PCYC, which was where Costa trained, where Fennick started, where Jeff Hitman Harden started, all the legends. And I actually slept in the PCYC. I slept in Kostazoo's. Costa had like a massage room and a mattress, and so I slept on a mattress on the floor in the PCYC, in the gym for about 4 months like a refugee.
Wow.
Before
You're
they got
living and
me,
breathing it.
before they got me accommodation, I lived there at the Newtown PCYC, the most famous boxing gym in Australian history. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
all the street kids used to come down and bang on the door at 3 a.m. to play basketball, and I used to open the door for them. And so I just wanted to make friends. And I was on my own, and I was just chasing a dream in '96 to be an 18-year-old kid left Tasmania with 2 heads, and just wanted to be the best boxer I could be. So, yeah, it's a true story. And Johnny Lewis was the one
That's
that named
awesome.
me. Johnny Lewis was the one that named me Tazzy.
Oh, I wondered. I always assumed because of the
It was Johnny
Tassie thing,
Lewis.
but
He
Johnny
said,
Lewis.
Tassie, son, you're the best in the command of Tasmania since the scholar. You're a good kid, mate. And that was it. Started me as Tassie, and the rest is history.
That's a spot on Johnny Lewis impersonation, by the way.
And then Jeff Fennick told me every Tasmanian joke that's ever been made.
Yeah. I think he's told me the same ones, just replacing New Zealand with Tasmania.
Yeah. I heard it all. After a training
Yeah.
session, I'll be like, yeah, okay, Jeff, that's another one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for putting me down, brother. Thank you very much. But
He's still telling him. He's still telling the same jokes.
when he gets on a roll, mate. These days now I'm a bit older. I try and stop him early before he gets on a roll. Otherwise, he'll just have a fun-filled day with me. Bag me for the next 10 minutes.
Here's a tip, not for you, but for anyone watching. If Jeff Fennick invites you to a party, just don't respond because he's setting you up. And I've fallen into it too many times. He's got everyone. I won't say any more. You probably fall into the same joke. But just don't say anything about a party.
I'm gonna tell you this, right? I'm gonna say this on the podcast before we finish. And I'm going to tag Jeff in this so Jeff will laugh his ass off. My idol, Jeff Fennick, knows I always wanted to be on TV, knows I always wanted to be an actor, get in commercials, get on TV shows, right? He invites me around to his house in 5 Dock one day after training. And he said, I've got a guy that could get you on TV. He said, you just got to audition for him. And I thought, well, Jeff knows everyone, so of course he knows someone in TV, yeah? So he goes, all you got to do is come and audition. So I went round there. They're one of the old school, video recorders. He goes, go and put these Qantas pajamas on and go and just make up a bit of a spiel. So I come out and done this thing like when I fly Qantas, I wear the Qantas pajamas. And anyway, he was doing to set me up. He was just taking the piss to show his mates. And then then there was some other thing I had to do. I'd done about 4 little comedy skits for him. And he got me a beauty there. Jeff Fennick.
That's classic. And Johnny Lewis is the same, practical joker.
Oh, the best ever.
When Paul Gallen fought Chris Tszyu for the Australian heavyweight title up in Newcastle.
I was there.
Yeah, I did a story I wrote that day. I pretty much just sat in Gallen's dressing room, start to finish, just sort of taking it all in and wrote about it. But we did the post-fight media scrum. Tszyu and Gallen were both sitting on a couch in the dressing room. It was a tiny little dressing room. There's 20 people in there. We're all crammed in there. We're going for about 10 minutes, and mate, the smell, something happened. There was a smell that went around, and it was just like, this is terrible. And Gallen said something first. He goes, mate, he turned to Tszyu, I think, and said, did you just fart here? Like, because it's horrendous. And he's going, no. Tszyu's going, no, I don't know what's going on. Johnny Lewis had let out a stink bomb and just left the joint.
Johnny did.
So
so
you got Fox Sports cameras and TV cameras, and we're all in there, and you just see Johnny Lewis, like the one bloke walking away, just laughing.
Are you kidding me? Oh,
true story.
I got you, son. I got
them all. And then about an hour or two later, we finished up work. We'd filed our stories for the day, and a few of us went down to McDonald's in Newcastle for a late night feed. There was it was me, Jamie Pandaram, Mike Journo at the paper. Baby Pete Petruski was there.
Yeah, no Baby
A couple
Pete
of those
very
boys.
Well.
Johnny Lewis was there as well, and we were all sort of eating at McDonald's. It's 1:30 in the morning. It's that fucking smell. He let out another one at
You kidding
the
me?
McDonald's.
I can't believe he's still up to his old tricks, Johnny. That's off his head.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. He
crazy.
must he must have had a
Yeah.
stash of stink bombs
I'm,
carrying around
I'm,
for all these
I'm
years.
privileged. I'm privileged to be able to say that I spent so many years with Johnny in Newtown, going for walks at Erskineville Road. We still talk regularly now. Johnny was a massive part of my adult life. Leaving Tassie at 18 to follow my dreams, and he played a big part of my future and as a young man and as a boxer, and he's a legend. And I'll tell you another practical joker, Anzo Hyder.
Oh yeah.
Anzo
Oh,
Hyder,
gee, I've heard. Yeah,
Anzo
yeah, yeah.
Hyder, mate, he's the funniest fucking person. Oh, mate. If you haven't been on a trip with Anzo Hyder, you haven't been on a trip yet, mate. Trust me. You got to go to America with Anzo Hyder. Him and Danny Green both. They're both just non-stop.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
I've got to work on that one. I've never been on an Angelo trip or an away trip with him.
yeah. But
But it's
listen,
funny
mate.
whenever the Maloney's fight in Japan, because the
Yeah,
crowds are so quiet, you don't hear anything,
yeah.
but you can hear Angelo in the corner.
Angelo.
He's the
No,
loudest bloke in the
he's
country.
unbelievable. But listen, mate, before you go to bed, watch Zoo versus Forrest,
Zoo Brendan Forrest.
1991 Amateur World Championships for the gold medal.
All right, I'll do that as soon as we jump off here.
And
It's
before
my
we go, I
homework.
want to say, look, everyone that's watching, there's three boxers that probably don't get talked about enough: Robbie Bomber Peden, Nadal Skinny Hussein, and Hussey Hussein. Three of our greatest in any era. They would have been champions. Don't get talked about enough in Australian boxing. And they're just three of the elite guys that, paved the way for some of these young guys now. If anyone got hit by Skinny Hussein's body shot, you weren't getting up, trust me. So
Yeah,
to them three guys, Hussey and Robbie Peden, mate, unbelievable. So, mate, it's been a pleasure to have you on, mate. I'm sure we could probably keep going for a bit longer, but
yeah. But yeah. Uh, I just love talking boxing, but talking sport as well. So,
yeah,
mate, appreciate you having me on, and I've told a few yarns to keep people interested. But
yeah,
I know some of the names you've got ready to roll out over the next couple of weeks as well. So,
yeah. Got something big to drop. I'll let you know. We've got something very big to drop. There'll be a superstar pound for pound great coming to Australia soon via Tassie Brown and BB Promotions. So I'll be dropping it very soon.
awesome, man. Well, you let me know when that's dropped because I'll do a story on it. It's that big.
Done, done,
We'll do
done. Well,
it.
thanks for being on Ringside Seat with Tassie, mate. And I look forward to seeing you at the Tim Tszyu fight in Newcastle this weekend. Let's go, Tim Tszyu, my brother. Let's go.
See you in a couple of days.
Take care, mate. See ya.
Cheers, bro.